exposed. Sinister stories of haunted trails revealed 17 terrifying guides uncover cursed truths. Claire had always trusted Bellwood's charm. The whisper of wind through leaves, the laughter of her children echoing like a melody in the crisp air. But lately, the quaint suburb felt more like a graveyard, silence blanketing overgrown lawns, and the laughter of yesteryears drowned by the suffocating weight of dread. As Claire stepped outside, her pulse quickened. Shadows flickered in the corners of her vision. They said the woods held secrets, but no one shared how sinister they could be. "Mom, do we have to go into those woods?" Sam's voice, strained with anxiety, pulled her from her reverie. Lily stood beside him, nodding, her face pale as she clutched her brother's arm. The trail loomed, dark and twisted, like a gaping mouth swallowing light. Claire dismissed their fears. They were just whispers echoed from fears stoked by peers. "Just a quick hike, guys. You'll see, it'll be fun," she said, forcing a smile. Every week, it was their escape from the chaos work, bills, and stress. She wanted to reclaim that peace. "We need this." Yet with each step deeper into the woods, unease settled in her stomach like lead. Twisted branches clawed at her arms as they passed gnarled trees. The air shifted. It was thick with something unknown. Maybe it was just her imagination, but Claire couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. "Mom, did you hear that?" Lily's eyes were wide, scanning the shadows. A low, sinister rustle echoed, but Claire shrugged it off. "It's just the wind." With every whispered sound, tension coiled tighter. What was that shadow flitting between the trees? Felt too close, too real. As they reached a clearing, the unsettling aura only grew stronger. The bright moon illuminated the path, but the darkness beyond swallowed everything else. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The moment hung as Claire felt the dread rise. Fingers trembling, she led them forward, hoping to distract from the encroaching fear. But something shifted in the woods. The shadows grew darker, and the rustling became a low, haunting whisper. It beckoned, promising secrets of the lost. "Did you see that?" Sam's words tumbled out, barely above a whisper. Suddenly, he lagged behind, drawn by a mysterious sound. "Stay close," Claire snapped, but he was already drifting away, curiosity pulling him into the depths of the trees. Panic surged as the trail morphed into an unrecognizable maze. The path distorted as Claire's heart raced. She turned, aiming for reassurance, but Lily was frozen, eyes wide, staring at a figure that loomed in stark contrast to the night's embrace. Their neighbors, cloaked in darkness, encircled a grotesque altar formed from the remnants of lost hikers. Chants filled the air, chilling Claire's blood. This wasn't just a family outing. It was a descent into a nightmare that would claim everything she held dear. The line between protectiveness and danger blurred furiously as terror took hold. Were they the next names to be etched into the wicked tales of Bellwood? Claire's mind spiraled as she grasped the horrifying truth. Would she be able to find Sam before he vanished into this nightmare? Or would he and she become just another whisper in this haunted town? Claire's heart raced, each beat pounding in her ears like the rhythmic chants that surrounded them. The grotesque altar glowed under the moonlight, casting eerie shadows across the faces of their neighbors, twisted in hypnotic fervor. There was no hint of recognition in their expressions, only a chilling devotion that sent shivers down Claire's spine. "Sam," she shouted, the name escaping like a desperate plea. But the rustling trees swallowed her voice, the underbrush crackling like bones as she lunged toward the direction he had wandered off. Fear clawed at her throat, choking her cries. The chant swelled, punctuating the air thick with dread. It vibrated through her, shaking her resolve. Each syllable felt like a curse whispered into the very fabric of the night. She directed her gaze left and right, but the darkness seemed deeper there, consuming her vision with phantom shapes slithering just out of sight. "Lily, stay close," Claire instructed, grabbing her daughter's hand. The little girl's fingers were icy, trembling with fear as she pressed against her mother's side. But the urgency of the moment pulled Claire's focus from Lily, her mind fixated on Sam. He could not be lost, not in this cursed place. Every whisper, every rustle drew her deeper into the thicket, past families she had once shared barbecues with, now shrouded in malice. Their eyes mirrored the moon's glow, vacant but intense, compelling her to follow. Then came a fleeting glimpse of Sam, a flicker of his bright yellow jacket somewhere beyond the trees. Claire bolted forward. "Sam!" She stumbled, branches snagging her arms, sharp and cruel. The air hung thick, almost tangible, as if it conspired to weigh her down. Each step was harder than the last. Sometimes it felt like she was moving through molasses. And then she broke free into another clearing. It was starkly illuminated. Yet an unnatural cold enveloped her. The altar loomed in the center, the chilling hum louder now, but there was no sign of Sam. Instead, the ground near the altar was smeared with what she recognized in the pit of her stomach. A pair of red sneakers, the right one scuffed and older than her son's. "Couldn't be," Claire gasped, a mix of dread and denial, tumbling to her knees to examine it. Was this the end? Was this their worst nightmare? Why hadn't she listened to the hushed warnings whispered by the town elders about the woods? What had she done dragging her children into this mess? "You need to leave." A voice slithered out from the shadows. Claire whirled around, her heart thundering as she faced one of her neighbors. A once familiar face now marred by something dark and twisted. "They take what they need. For the peace." "What do you mean?" She was breathless, panic-stricken. "They come for those who stray too far," he hissed, a grim smile creeping across his lips. "Your son is special. He can join the others." "No." Claire lunged forward, but he melted away into the darkness, cackling softly. Time snapped into focus again. Claire stumbled toward the altar, the chant rising, echoing louder. A frantic thought surged through her. She would not let them take her son. Her instinct for survival kicked in, driving her to tear through the underbrush, calling out his name, each syllable laced with terror. "Sam!" She cried until her throat burned. But the only response was the chilling echo of laughter, a sound filled with despair and defeat. As she pressed deeper into the void, Claire felt a presence at her back. Coldness, like a blanket of dread, wrapped around her, paralyzing her for just a moment. The whispered promises gnawed at her sanity. What were they doing to Sam? In the darkness, shadows danced and twisted, leading her into a labyrinth of terror from which there might be no escape. Would her family survive, or were they already lost in this unholy darkness? She turned, determined to find her son. But the woods had a hunger of their own. As she stepped back, dread coursing through her veins, a chilling realization struck. What if she wasn't alone anymore? What if the woods had claimed someone far more important than her? "Mom?" That whisper, echoing from the shadows, could it be? Would this twisted nightmare finally reveal its secrets, or would it consume them all? "Mom?" The soft voice pierced Claire's heart like a dagger. It was Sam's voice, but it floated through the darkness like a ghost. "Sam!" she gasped, spinning back into the web of trees surrounding her. The shadows twisted unnaturally, teasing her senses. Her instincts screamed for her to run, but her heart lay heavy with the desire to find her son. "Where are you?" Claire called desperately, her voice trembling as she took hesitant steps toward the source of the whisper. The familiar trees now changed shape, looming like monstrous giants, unyielding and dark. Over here the voice led her, echoing and dancing among the shadows, pulling her deeper and deeper. She pushed past the branches, feeling the sting of their sharp edges against her skin. "Stay with me, Lily," she whispered, glancing at her daughter. Lily clung tightly, her fears mirrored in her wide eyes. Together they plunged into the darkness as they moved. Claire's mind raced, desperate thoughts colliding. What had she stumbled into? The cult-like fervor surrounding the altar. Her neighbors transformed into ghastly silhouettes of themselves. Where was the innocence of their small town? The laughter of summer barbecues. "Mom, please," Sam's voice echoed again, almost pleading. The chant grew louder, a caustic hum resonating in her bones. She pressed forward, chasing the sound, but shadows flickered just out of her line of sight, taunting her. "Don't let them take you," she murmured, her throat raw. Suddenly the air shifted. A gust of wind whispered through the trees, carrying the murmur of incantations. Claire hesitated, feeling a chill sweep through her. The shadowed figures around the altar seemed to sway, as if drawn in by an unseen force, then seamlessly absorbed back into the trees, fading like smoke in the wind. "Sam!" She screamed again, the final syllable cracking under anguish. And then she saw him, a flicker of yellow through the haze. It was a blur at first, shifting near the edge of her vision. The minute she locked eyes on that unmistakable jacket, her heart surged with a primal urge to reach him. "Stay back!" A voice thundered through the gloom. Claire skidded to a halt. An imposing figure emerged from the darkness, blocking her path. They were cloaked, a shadow draped across familiar features. Another neighbor, now distorted by the glow of the altar. The anger etched deep in their face sent a lance of fear through her. "Don't come any closer," he warned, lifting a hand. "He needs to choose." "Choose what?" Claire's voice quivered, her heart pounding in confusion. "Sam, come here now." But the shadowed figure raised his other arm, pointing toward the altar. Its surface shimmered beneath a veil of moonlight, revealing symbols that writhed and twisted as if alive. "Join them," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. The chant intensified, resonating like a desperate heartbeat. Claire could feel it pulsing through her veins, overwhelming her with dread. "Mom!" Sam's voice broke free from the shadows, thin and wavering. The scream pierced the air with adrenaline-fueled urgency. Claire sprang toward the sound, her instincts propelling her forward. Confusion morphed into determination. But as she drew nearer, Sam's figure flickered and vanished. A sickening realization settled in her stomach. He was being pulled away, deeper into their twisted rituals. "No!" Claire leaped forward, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Sam, I'm coming." Yet the moment she reached out, the cold shadows seized her, wrapping around her limbs and dragging her back with chilling force. The chant crescendoed, a horrifying harmony of voices, drowning out her cries. There was no more warmth, no more safety, only darkness and dread. Claire's heart raced, struggling against the suffocating grip of fear. What had she unleashed? As the last glimpse of light faded from her vision, her world melting into a canvas of black, a thought ignited within her. She would not give up. Whatever was lost could still be retrieved. "Mom! Help!" Another cry echoed through the void, sparking an undeniable flame of hope. But that hope vanished like mist in morning light, leaving only chilling uncertainty. Would she find him, or would the darkness claim them both? The woods swirled around her, fevered whispers echoing ominously. The time was running out. Would she become yet another sacrifice in this realm of terror? "Sam!" The cry felt hopeless, yet it was rising again, louder, ready to spill into an abyss more horrific than anyone could ever imagine. Claire gasped and became acutely aware of the suffocating blackness around her. The cold was monstrous, pressing down like a shroud. She strained to breathe, the air thick with the decay of lost souls. Shadows swirled, twitching at the edges of her vision, whispering secrets that made her skin crawl. "Sam!" She called again, her voice a mere ember against the rising darkness. Took everything within her to hold on, to fight back. Suddenly, a flash pierced through the void, a flicker of light dancing. Hope ignited fiercely in Claire's chest. "Sam!" she shouted, scrambling toward the glow. Every stumbling step echoed in her ears, heavy with dread. Was she moving closer to her son, or deeper into the clutches of the shadows. The chanting surged again, a chaotic tide of despair. Voices entwined in a desperate crescendo, each note clawing at her sanity. Words formed into chilling recognitions. Sacrifice, host, binding. Her stomach twisted painfully. What do they want? She thought wildly, terror pooling in her veins. Mom, please. Sam's voice weaved through the darkness, more desperate now. Help. It crackled with urgency and fear, tethering her to reality. Claire propelled herself forward, despite the oppressive weight of darkness dragging her back. Each heartbeat seemed to sync with the chanting, a horrifying rhythm. Shadows loomed closer, their forms distorting, reaching toward her with skeletal fingers. Panic surged through her, but she fought against it, clawing her way toward the pulsing light. Finally, she emerged into a moonlit clearing, breathless and wild-eyed. The altar was monstrous, gnarled wood writhing beneath the symbols etched into its surface, twisted runes that looked like they were alive. The air hummed with a dark energy, vibrating against her skin. Claire, a familiar voice whispered, the drag of it heavy and oppressive. She turned, her heart in her throat. There, hovering near the altar, were the figures of her neighbors, collective forms blurred and darkened by some unseen force. Their faces were twisted in expressions of agony and ecstasy. Eyes wide yet vacant, hollow shells animated by a malevolent hunger. Help him. He must join, they chanted, their voices blending into one haunting drone, resonating within her core. No, Claire shouted, squaring her shoulders even as terror licked at her resolve. He's just a boy. You can't do this. With each word, she stepped closer to Sam's flickering form, where he stood at the edge of the altar, a sinister glow. Mom! Sam cried out again, wavering between realms. His expression was a mirror of her horror, trembling with fear as he faced the horde. The neighbors surged at her, spectral arms outstretched. Join us! Claire, join! Their voices became a piercing cacophony. She could feel their cold breath on her skin. Still she pressed on. In a last act of desperation, she lunged toward Sam, reaching through the haze as the figures recoiled. I want to let them take you. Another footstep, another heartbeat, her body consumed with sheer will. Then suddenly, silence. The air stilled like the moment before a storm, each breath turning into a shaky gasp. Claire's heart raced wildly, the world teetering on a cusp between light and darkness. The chanting morphed into a low, rumbling growl, shaking her bones. And as she locked eyes with Sam, a horrifying realization struck her. A flicker of shadows at the altar was not just the void. It was a gateway. Mom, no! Sam screamed, his face a mask of raw panic as he began to drift back, pulled by an invisible force. Sam! Claire's voice cracked. She lunged forward, stretching her arms wide in a desperate embrace. But the dark figures surged faster now, breaking through the silence with chilling screams. And at that moment, when everything seemed lost, the ground beneath them trembled, the trees creaking like ancient giants awakening. As the chanting roared back to life, Claire understood the truth. The forest was alive, and it was hungry. Would she close the gap in time, or would the darkness swallow them whole? The trees twisted around her, urging her forward, their gnarled branches reaching as if to take her away into eternal night. Sam, we have to go. But the word go felt like a curse. As the shadows tightened their grip, Claire's last shred of hope faded, swallowed by the night between them. What nightmare awaited them if they were pulled into the abyss? Claire's heart pounded, a frantic drumbeat drowned out by the echoing growls. The shadows writhed closer, hungry and eager. With every fleeting heartbeat, she felt the weight of their intent. The darkness craved more than just presence. It wanted her essence, a piece of her to join the eternal cycle of whispers. Sam! She cried, desperation paralyzing her for a fleeting second as she reached for her son. But the insatiable energy of the altar wrapped around Sam like barbed wire, chains of dark power pulling him toward the brink. No, no, no! She fought against the ancient, twisted roots grasping at her ankles, wrapping around her legs like serpents. With every ounce of strength, Claire ripped herself free and charged forward, the world narrowing to a single point. Sam, her son. "Mom, help me." His voice trembled, a fragile string tugging at her heart. Claire crossed the threshold of the altar, the air thickening into a palpable barrier. With each breath, she felt the temperature drop lower, a frost creeping in, chilling her soul. It felt as if the very essence of the forest was feeding off her fear, growing stronger, louder. The figures, her neighbors, once familiar faces, were now grotesque parodies of themselves. Their mouths twisted in agony as they demanded her surrender, spitting venomous words wrapped in silk. "Join us, Claire. Join the darkness." She felt the pulse of the altar reverberate through her bones. It beckoned, seducing her with a false sense of security. Was this what they wanted? For her to embrace the void? To accept the inevitable? Enough! Summoning every ounce of determination, Claire forced herself to look into the eyes of the nearest figure. "You don't own my son. You don't own me." With a fierce roar, she lunged towards Sam, who stood frozen between dimensions, eyes wide with fear. As she closed the gap, the growling grew louder, morphing into a savage howl, a crescendo of despair that shook the trees around them. The pull of the altar intensified, and Sam was caught in its sinister grip. "No!" Claire shouted as she dove, her fingers brushing against Sam's. For a heartbeat, their skin connected, a tether of warmth against the bone-chilling cold. She could feel his pulse faint but still there, fighting. But the shadows writhed wider around them, snapping like ravenous jaws. They constructed walls of darkness, blocking her escape, each movement a testament to their power. She gritted her teeth, pushing against the invisible wall. "We're getting out. Together." As if her words ignited a spark, Sam's eyes cleared, and he focused on her. "Mom!" he screamed, the edge of terror twisting his voice. "I'm slipping, please." Claire's body burned with adrenaline. She pulled harder, her grip tightening around his wrist. "Hold on, Sam. I won't let you fall." The shrieks of the void echoed around them, filling her ears, resonating in her soul. It was a melody of despair, a universal tune of dread the forest thrived on. Then, an unknown force surged through her, an ancestral strength echoed from the land itself. With one powerful yank, Claire drew Sam toward her just as the figures lunged forward, their fingers brushing against her back, cold and claw-like. The world spun. Light burst into existence, blinding and pure, stripping away the oppressive shadows. Claire gasped as the warmth enveloped them, breaking the chains binding them to the altar. She could feel the pulsing energy shifting, fragmenting under the weight of her love and willpower. But it wasn't enough. The dark figures screamed a chorus of betrayal mingled with rage, and the vastness of the forest trembled in their fury. As Claire yanked Sam free, the altar pulsed with anger, cracking the ground beneath them. The earth opened, revealing endless nothingness, a gaping wound in the very fabric of reality. "Run!" Claire screamed, shoving Sam ahead of her. But just as they turned to flee, a shadow loomed large, blocking their path. A figure emerged, impossibly tall and cloaked in swirling darkness. Its voice was a deep rumble, echoing in the marrow of her bones. "You cannot escape your fate, Claire." In that moment, terror gripped her heart. What fate awaited them beyond the shadows? What horrors would they have to face to truly be free? The forest trembled as the ground began to shake, a warning bell tolling through the night. The ground shook violently, sending tremors through Claire's bones. It felt like an earthquake fueled by something ancient and malevolent. Her heart raced, each beat a countdown to some unfathomable doom. The figure towering before them shifted, the swirling darkness around it coiling like smoke, its void-like eyes boring into her soul. "Fate?" Claire gasped, her voice barely a whisper. "What do you know about fate?" The figure lowered its head, revealing a gash where its mouth should be, a dark slit that seemed to absorb all light. "You have meddled in things beyond your understanding. This forest hungers for your sacrifice. You are bound to it now." A cold shiver ran down her spine. Claire tightened her grip on Sam's wrist. He was trembling, a reflection of her own fear. "We want to be a part of your twisted fate. We will fight." The specter laughed an eerie sound that echoed through the trees, mingling with the growls of the dark figures that surrounded them. "You think you can defy what has been written? You are but a moth drawn to the flame." She looked around, panic setting in as more shadows materialized, their whispers rising to a maddening crescendo. The forest seemed to distort around her, branches twisting into grotesque shapes that reached for them. "Mom!" Sam cried, his eyes wide with terror. "What do we do?" "Stick close to me," she murmured, determination hardening her resolve. "We find a way out. We have to keep moving." With a sudden ferocity, she turned, pulling Sam behind her as she charged straight into the ever-thickening haze of shadows. The figures screamed, a dissonance of rage and despair that twisted her stomach in knots. Each step felt like walking deeper into an abyss, the air growing heavier, suffocating. But they had to push through. They had to escape the grip of this nightmare as they ran. Claire clutched Sam's hand tighter, trying to focus on the warmth of his skin instead of the darkness threatening to envelop them. With each pounding heartbeat, they rushed deeper into the trees, the twisted trunks seeming to close in like a living cage. "Look," Sam shouted, pointing ahead. A sliver of light flickered through the gnarled branches. They could see a break in the trees, a narrow path leading into a glade that glowed with a soft luminescence, promising escape or sanctuary. "Keep running," Claire shouted, desperation fueling her legs. The shadows clawed at her heels, their grasp tangling around her ankles, pulling her back, whispering her name in a chorus of misery. But she would not give in. With one last burst of strength, she lunged forward, dragging Sam with her. They stumbled into the clearing, the light washing over them in simultaneous relief and terror flooding her senses. The light was not warm. It stung her skin like ice, the luminescence crawling over her in the same unsettling manner as the darkness had. Claire's breath caught in her throat as she glanced over her shoulder. The shadows halted at the edge, writhing as if unable to cross an invisible boundary. "What is this place?" she asked. Peering into the radiant expanse, an eerie silence enveloped them, the whispers fading into an unsettling stillness. Felt strange, almost like time itself held its breath. The ground beneath them pulsated, thrumming like a heartbeat, both familiar and menacing. Suddenly, a shape began to emerge from the light. It wasn't another shadow but something else. An eerie figure cloaked in the same pale luminescence, humanoid yet unnatural. It moved slowly, deliberately, its head tilting in curiosity. "Come closer, Claire," it beckoned, its voice a melodic whisper that sent chills up her spine. "You have entered sacred ground now. Will you not offer a tribute?" "What kind of tribute?" Claire asked, heart racing as she tightened her grip on Sam. The being smiled without warmth, revealing rows of impossibly sharp teeth. "Each darkness demands its due. What will you give to leave this place behind?" Her heart dropped. The question hung heavy in the air, pregnant with dread. A price was to be paid, and she felt the shadows of her past clawing at her, sacrifices made and sins lingering like echoes. Then Sam gasped. "Mom, I don't like this place." Claire's breath caught. Could she trust this luminescent apparition? What happened if they refused? The darkness surged behind her, claws tearing at the edge of her thoughts. "What do we do?" Claire whispered, fear spilling over into panic. Would they trade their safety for the unknown, or defy both light and dark to escape? The choice lay before her, heavy and ominous. What darkness would she unleash if she sought to save her son? And as the forest pulsed around them, she realized some secrets are never truly buried. With her heart pounding in her ears, Claire stared into the hollow eyes of the luminous figure. It felt like a wild game with no rules. Time stretched around them, the hush settling heavier than the forest's gloom. She glanced at Sam, his small face marred by fear, and she wanted to scream. "What shall I give?" she asked, desperation thick in her voice. "What do you want?" "You know what must be offered," it responded, teeth glimmering with that same unnatural light. "What you cherish most draws power from your fear." Claire's stomach churned. Her mind raced, grappling for the right answer. They could bargain with fear, but what did that truly mean? She thought of the memories they shared, the moments of laughter, of quiet solace on dark nights. The shadows shifted restlessly at their backs, their whispers growing louder, desperate to claim her attention. Mom, Sam whimpered, pulling her arm. I want to go home. Please. The word home cut through her like a shriek. It pierced the chaos, a stark reminder of everything she fought for. What if I offer you my deepest fear? She said, as if her very words could pull power from the air. My sacrifice for my son's safety? The figure stepped closer, and the pulse of the ground became more distinct, more demanding. A fear shared is a burden lessened. But tell me, Claire, it hissed. What makes you tremble in the dark? An image flashed through her mind alone in that abandoned house, hearing footsteps, a shadow watching from the corner. Terrifying memories of nights spent in dread came crashing forward like tidal waves. But how could she voice that terror? I fear losing control, she stammered. I fear that I could fail him. The being nodded slowly, its smile widening. A worthy offering. Submit to it, and so shall the audacity of fate be rewritten. A surge of warding shadows dashed at Clara's feet, but she stood firm as if she had roots digging into the ground. Her voice trembled but remained steady. I'll give my fear if you spare my son. The figure paused, eyes narrowing as the shadows behind them pulsed. Fear is a currency of existence. We will take it and infuse it into your tribute. We will spare the one you love. Claire closed her eyes, trembling. She felt the world shift around her, the air thick with something electric. Do it then, she whispered, fighting back tears. Just let him go. With a nod, the figure extended an unsettling hand, drawing closer to her. As it touched her arm, a cold chill erupted throughout her being. Everything she feared, every worry cast into a dark abyss, began to slip away. A scream ripped from her throat, echoing into the clearing as she felt her fear snagged from her skin and pooled around the figure like a cloak. Each ounce of anxiety, every moment of doubt, washed into the air like dark smoke. Now we are bound, it said, voice low and resonant. You have paid your debt, and yet a seed of darker fate shall remain in you. The shadows that had hovered closed in, swirling around Sam, excitement rising in their hisses. He gasped as the ground trembled again. Something shifting, something emerging from the darkened edges of the clearing. What's happening? Mom! Sam cried. A low rumble turned into laughter, a sound that dripped with malice. Claire's heart sank. She had made her choice, yet here they stood, trapped in a fresh wave of shadows. This isn't over, the figure warned, for some fates are twisted, and debts must always be collected. The laughter darkened as more figures emerged from the depths, their forms shifting and blending into the swirling shades around them. Claire was caught between the apparitions of her past and those feeding on her fear now. Her mind raced. What had she awakened? She reached out for Sam, feeling the tremors of his panic echo her own racing heart. They had to run again, run deeper into the light, into whatever salvation lay beyond this curse. But behind them, the shadows laughed, merging into one sinister mass. What awaited them in the next corner of this twisted fate? Would they ever find freedom, or was their struggle just another tale written in darkness? Mom, we need to go, Sam shouted, pulling her back into movement. Casting one last glance at the spectral figure, Claire gritted her teeth. She would not let fear define her, not anymore. With every stride, they surged forward, ignorance of what loomed just ahead. And as they dashed into an uncertain future, the chilling promise lingered. A choice made had consequences yet unheard. Would the very nature of their bond become their undoing? The shadows writhed like restless serpents, hungry and devious, eager to reclaim what Claire had wrested from their grasp. Every step she took sent a shockwave of dread through the ground beneath her, as if the earth itself was a living entity, alive to her regret and newfound guilt. Run faster, she urged Sam, almost tripping over the roots snaking out like bony fingers. The laughter echoed around them, curling into their ears, igniting the worst of their fears. She threw glances behind them, heart pounding in terror at the sight of countless luminous eyes flickering in the darkness. Watching, waiting just ahead, a glimmer of light broke through the encroaching gloom, offering a beacon of hope. But Claire's instincts screamed at her. Nothing was ever as it seemed in this cursed realm. "Stay close," she shouted, wrapping her fingers tightly around Sam's wrist as they approached the light. The laughter grew louder, reverberating through the air with an eerie, dissonant harmony. Each note played on her nerves, and with each clawing sound, Claire could feel the pulse of something ancient and malevolent, something that knew her deepest weaknesses and thrived upon her vulnerability. They emerged into a small clearing, bathed in silver light that cut through the fog. It was a false sanctuary, she realized, the beauty of the illuminated space marred by the encroaching shadows at its border. The comforting glow seemed to pulse, almost alive, shifting dark and light like a breathing creature. "Is this it?" Sam whispered, glancing around. His eyes reflected the same fear coursing through her veins. "No," Claire said with a tremor in her voice. "We can't stop here." Yet something compelled her to linger. A flicker at the opposite edge of the clearing caught her eye. A rotting tree, gnarled and grotesque, appeared to twist into the sky, its bark like cracked leather. Beneath it, a shape writhed, almost as if it were tugging against the roots, trying to uproot itself from the soil. "Mom, look!" Sam exclaimed, moving toward the dark mass. His innocence added weight to her hesitation, a sweet blade that twisted deep. But Claire sensed danger simmering just beneath the surface, a warning she couldn't ignore. "No, Sam, come back," she yelled, reaching for him, panic slicing through her. She felt that which she had offered, yet had not entirely freed herself from. The shadows flared, drawn to the young boy, and with it, another wave of sickening laughter cascaded through the trees. She grabbed Sam just as he neared the tree, pulling him back with fierce strength. "Stay with me." The shadows flared outwards, forming tangible shapes, faces of suffering, betrayal, and anguish. Realizing that her sacrifice had only poured gasoline onto the flames, Claire's breath came in heaves. "I didn't ask for this," she cried out into the void, desperation and horror swirling together. "You fool. You said I would be free." A voice answered, smooth and seductive, echoing from the darkness. "But freedom cannot exist without its cost. Your fear is but a drop in a tumultuous sea." Claire felt a chill creep into her bones, relentless and bone-deep. "What do you want from us?" she shouted hoarsely, longing for an answer, though part of her knew everything. "Everything, Mother," it hissed, wrapping around them like thick vines. "Your bond is the key." At that moment, the tree twisted, revealing its secrets, a gaping black maw at its base, ready to swallow them whole. She felt Sam tremble against her, and the weight of her decisions crashed down like a tidal wave. "I will not lose you," Claire pled, her heart racing against the encroaching shadows, the laughter growing thick and suffocating. She had sacrificed her fears, but what was the price of loving someone who was now a target? A sudden understanding gripped her. To fight, they had to confront whatever monsters this dark world housed. They needed to unravel the very nature of the forces threatening to consume them. She turned to Sam, her resolve hardening. "We have to face it together. We can't give in to fear again." But still, the shadows sang, their seductive call weaving into her thoughts, drawing closer with each frantic heartbeat. Will their bond become their salvation or their ruin? The leftward shadows whispered, merging to form a humanoid shape that reached out, part guardian, part executioner. As Claire stepped forward, heart racing, she knew one truth. If she wanted to protect Sam, she would have to plunge into the darkness. What awaited them in the abyss of their fears? In the dark, secrets stirred, ready to unveil horrors that would forever change their bond. The shadows surged forward, slithering like oily smoke, curling around Claire's ankles, desperate to pull her down. Each tendril seemed to pulse with a life of its own, aware of their fear and hunger for it. She couldn't breathe. Panic exploded in her chest as she tightened her grip on Sam, nearly crushing his small wrist. "Hold on tight," she shouted, her frantic voice barely piercing the chaotic symphony of laughter and whispers. The lights at the edge of the clearing flickered wildly, threatening to drown in the dark. It felt like a cruel joke, this glimmer of safety positioned right beside the very abyss they needed to escape. Sam shivered beside her, eyes wide as he tried to observe the rotting tree and the grotesque mass writhing beneath. "Mom!" His voice quivered. "What if they take us?" Claire turned her gaze back, her heart clenching at the thought. "They won't. Not if we stick together." She forced bravado into her voice, though dread pooled in her stomach. "Together." The whisper echoed, mocking her, a dark echo of their bond. As if spelling out their fate, the shadows began to swirl faster, revealing glimpses of twisted faces, each more tormented than the last. Claire felt their suffering, like daggers piercing her soul. "Why won't you let us go?" Claire screamed into the shrouded depths, desperate for answers that danced just out of reach. "Because you belong to us." The voice hissed, melodic yet venomous. "A mother's love is a tether binding and beautiful, but also dangerous." Claire stumbled back, momentarily disoriented. She had willingly stepped into a realm of nightmares to free Sam from the darkness, but now it felt as if she were the one ensnared in an unbreakable chain. The shadows beckoned, glowing with sinister allure, inviting her to join their ghastly dance. "Mom, I feel them," Sam cried, shuddering. His eyes darted around, fixating on the shadows writhing ever closer, their tendrils grazing against their skin, like icy fingers testing for weakness. "Keep your eyes on me. Don't look away," Claire urged, pulling him closer. She felt his small heart pounding against her in a frantic rhythm, mirroring her own fear. But the shadows were relentless, weaving through their desperate grasp. Claire closed her eyes for a moment, struggling to focus on the love she felt for Sam. It burned bright, warm against the creeping chill. "Listen to me," she whispered fiercely, "we can't let them win. Remember what we talked about. We embrace it." Then, a flash of determination ignited within her as she stepped into the encroaching darkness, forcing Sam to do the same. As they crossed the threshold, a violent shudder pulsed from the shadows, like a beast startled from its slumber. The laughter stopped. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. In the quiet, a vision materialized, shuddering phantoms of regret and choices gone wrong, filling her mind with piercing clarity. Faces from her past twisted in the dark, pointing and laughing, holding her past failures up like trophies. Claire gasped, retreating instinctively. "No, not this. Face it, Claire." The voice murmured, seductive and sweet. "Your real enemy is within." Suddenly, the gnarled tree surged to life. A massive root shot out, wrapping around her ankle like a snake, dragging her toward the dark maw. "Mom!" Sam shouted, trying to pull her back. But Claire was weak. The shadows began to claw at her essence, pulling her apart. Her thoughts flickered back to the moments she had turned away when it mattered most, the words unsaid, the love unreturned. "Let go of her," Sam yelled, a spark of bravery jolting through his small form. In a blinding flash, he lunged forward, reaching for the darkness that threatened to engulf his mother. Miraculously, their fingers touched, but would it be enough? In that instant, Claire sensed a new power igniting within their connection, and as the shadows recoiled, retreating from the strength of their bond, she realized what had been a curse could also be their salvation. But was it truly strong enough to dispel the darkness closing in around them? As the shadows reformed into a frightening shape, one more twisted than before, Claire knew the real fight had only just begun. Would they survive the wrath of the darkness, or would it consume them whole before they could unveil the truth? "I won't let you take him," Claire roared, the words tearing through her throat like a battle cry. The shadows allowed a freeze in their relentless advance, pondering her defiance. For just a heartbeat, time stretched thick around them, wrapping everything in a veil of tension. Sam looked up at her, eyes wide, breaths quickening. "Mom, what are you going to do?" His voice shook, echoing in the vastness of fear that surrounded them. "We'll face them together," Claire declared, clutching his hand tightly. The warmth of their love surging between them connected like an unyielding thread in this tapestry of darkness. With every ounce of her being, she clung to that thread, unwilling to sever it. The shadows hissed, their laughter rising in a cruel symphony, swirling around them like a gust of wind. They were losing strength. Alone, they might falter, but together they formed an unbreakable fortress, a bond stronger than any fear the darkness wielded. Then, without warning, the gnarled roots lunged again, snaking across the ground like serpents eager for prey. Claire braced herself, pulling Sam closer, and then she screamed. It came from the depths of her soul, a primal roar of fury and defiance that shattered the silence like glass. "I will protect my son," she screamed, stepping forward into the abyss that dared to swallow them whole. "You may want to take us, but you will have to fight for every inch." To Claire's astonishment, the shadows recoiled, as if her words were a torch igniting a fire in the frigid air. "What is this power?" the dark figure hissed, confusion lacing its tone. "Love," Claire spat, her voice booming as she stepped further into the darkness. "Nothing can extinguish it, not even you." At that moment, a dazzling light flared from her heart, flicking like wildfire, spreading through the shadows, engulfing the tree, and sending a shockwave shimmering through the air. The roots fell away from her, recoiling as though burning in an eternal flame. "Now," she cried, tugging Sam with her. "We run." The clearing exploded into a torrent of color, the encroaching shadow retreating behind a veil of brilliant light. But still, the darkness lashed out, a final attempt to drag them back. But with each step toward the light, Claire felt her strength compounded, bolstered by every cherished memory with Sam, the laughter, the cuddles, even the quiet moments spent together. The bond between mother and son surged like an unwavering tide against the malevolence. Then at the edge of the forest stood a crack, a fissure beckoning to them, pulsating with warmth and hope. "Go, now," Claire urged, adrenaline thrumming through her veins. But as they made a desperate dash toward freedom, shadows lunged once more. Claire skidded to a halt, yanking Sam back just in time as a tendril of darkness slashed through the gap where they'd been. "Stop!" she roared, raising her other hand as if warding off evil. "We will not be taken." With one ferocious push of resolve, the blinding light exploded forth from her heart, swallowing the darkness in tendrils of radiant warmth. The shadow writhing before them disintegrated, unfurling into nothing but a faint echo of its malicious intent. And one by one, through the violence of that light, the figures trapped in the shadows faded. Claire felt the freedom stretch and stretch, flooding the ground beneath her feet as the last snatches of whispering darkness dissolved into silence. Exhausted, panting, she turned to Sam. Did we do it? Mom!" Sam laughed suddenly, joy breaking through the panic. Tears streamed down his face, shimmering with relief and euphoria. "We did it. I knew we could." They stood there, panting, engulfed in the radiance surrounding them. Sam's smile radiated the pure essence of childhood, innocence breaking through the shadow like a flower blooming in spring. Claire hugged him tightly, pricking the back of her eyes with warmth yet again. But the universe of shadows still loomed slightly around them. "Let us go home," she whispered. The path leading from the glade split wider, illuminating like a passage away from suffering. With newfound determination, Claire took Sam's hand and led him forward, back through the trees and the forest of nightmares. As they neared the edge of the woods, the whispers faded, intertwining with the tussle of leaves in a gentle breeze. The path widened, revealing their quiet suburb bathed in the morning sun. Finally, free from fear, Claire felt light as air. They emerged into the day, laughter and warmth embracing them as if the darkness had never touched their lives. "Promise me something," Claire said softly, crouching down to meet Sam's gaze. "Whatever we face together, all right?" A huge smile lit up Sam's face, and he nodded with conviction. Together, he threw his arms around her, and Claire reveled in this moment, the world sparkling anew around them. The shadows would never take them. They would never forget their power as they stepped away from the forest. Claire looked back, feeling gratitude for the light that came after every darkness. She burned brightly with that moment of connection. Their bond forged anew, and in the distance, a soft whisper swept through the trees, but they were well beyond its reach now. If you loved this conclusion, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button and help feed the algorithm. Your support is everything. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. Don't hold back. Let your thoughts be heard. And for the love of all things thrilling, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic finale. Don't wait even one more second, spread the word and join our adventure now.